I am the Comics Kid 2099. I've got about 400 pounds of books in my lap right now. As I've mentioned lately, I have been going through some of my books, some of my movies, trying to find stuff that I don't necessarily want anymore. I'm running out of room for the stuff that I do want to keep, so I'm going through some of the stuff that I've had some of it for many years, and I'm looking at my shelves and saying, I remember not really liking that book the last time I read it, but for whatever reason, I kept the book. And so I've been going through trying to find stuff that I can safely remove from my collection and then not feel any regret later on. And I had a substantial number of Transformers books, which is kind of surprising because I don't really consider myself much of a Transformers fan. Right now I've got Transformers Hearts of Steel. This was basically an Elseworld story where the Transformers, they woke up on Earth sometime in the 1800s instead of sometime in the 1980s or later, and it features the legendary folk hero John Henry. It features Mark Twain. Briefly, Jules Verne is in it, and it really seems more interested in focusing on those characters than it does the Transformers characters. The only Autobot who really features very heavily is Bumblebee, and then the Decepticons, I don't know, they just feel kind of clownish in this story. They team up with this guy who is this brilliant designer of like machines and stuff, and they want him to build stuff for them, and he doesn't know that they're evil yet. And he says, well, in order to do that, I would need money. And so then the Decepticons are like, okay, well, I guess we gotta go rob a train for this guy. And it seems like the Decepticons would be a little bit more ruthless in their attack on Earth than what they're presented as in this story. Also, the story ends incredibly abruptly, where the Decepticons fall off a cliff, and then it just ends. It just stops right there, where the good guys say, well, we did it! And I'm thinking, first of all, I'm not even sure if all the Decepticons were on that train that went off the cliff, and second of all, I think they would just get up and dust themselves off and say, okay, let's try again. Anyway, I like the idea of let's do different Elseworld stories with the Transformers, but this was the only one that was part of the Evolutions line. They didn't do any more other than this one. I like the idea, but this one I think the execution falls a little flat. And then I have two volumes here of Transformers: The War Within. This is mainly focusing on the war on Cybertron before any of the Cybertronians left and brought their war to other planets. And I really like the first volume. Which one is volume 1? I really liked volume 1. It mostly focuses on Optimus Prime and growing from being basically an accountant to suddenly being told, by the way, you are the new leader of the Autobots. This magic little machine that we have has chosen you. You're the leader. What do we do? And by the end of that story, Optimus has grown into being a leader. I really like that. And then in the opening pages of Volume 2, Megatron and Optimus, they vanish. And I guess it's an interesting idea. Okay, what happens with this war when the two figureheads of these two ideologies disappear? And the answer is, not a whole lot changes. Everyone is still fighting each other, except now we don't have any clear characters to really focus on. We have Grimlock and this other guy, I think Jetfire is his name, and that's another thing, is that there are about 400 characters in the Transformers mythos to keep up with, and I have such a hard time with it. If you asked me to name every X-Men I could think of and gave me a time limit, I could probably name about 150 different X-Men characters, but for some reason, I have trouble keeping up with all the Transformers characters, and so many of them would just be thrown at my face in reading all these books. I could name like 10 Transformers characters, and then there would be so many more, and every time I'd be reading one of these, I would say, okay, who is this guy? Anyway, it was Grimlock and I think Jetfire. We kind of get a little bit of a story with them in The War Within Volume 2, but this story was much more chaotic than Volume 1. It didn't have nearly as much focus on a single character, which was what I really liked about Volume 1. You have the bad guy of the story. Eventually, they do name him, but when he first shows up, he's got like a furnace for a face, and when he first shows up, the book expects us to know who he is, and I do not know who he is, and it's well over halfway into the book before it finally names this guy, and I feel like the problem with a lot of these Transformers books, even the ones that I think are pretty good, is that they're not written for me. They're written for people who already know the name of every Autobot and Decepticon and everything in between, and then they can just jump in and enjoy themselves. But someone who doesn't know who every Transformers character is, you're going to have a little bit of trouble keeping up with some of these. And that was my problem, one of my problems with The War Within Volume 2, is that I didn't know who a lot of these characters were. We had a lot of different factions operating in this story, and like I said, it just lacked the focus that Volume 1 had. Then we have these little turds, these 350-page tomes. I've got 7 of them here, so that's Volume 1, Volume 2, I hope this pile doesn't fall, Volume 3, then we get Volume 4. Now, I did reviews of some of these years ago when I did my 365-day graphic novel review challenge. I think I stopped with Volume 5. I think that was where I stopped. This is, I think, the All Hail Megatron event. Let me double check that. Yes, this collects all of the All Hail Megatron story, and then after that, I did not read any more Transformers stuff. I stopped there when I did my 365-day graphic novel review challenge, and then I also had Volume 6 and Volume 7. And then for a long time, I had forgotten that I had these Transformers books that I hadn't read. And then when I was going through and rereading these, I picked up Volume 6. It was after I read All Hail Megatron, and I was thinking, I don't think I remember anything that happened after this. But a lot of this stuff in the IDW collections is really good. Now, here's the thing. I want to take you back to the golden age of YouTube. There were 2, maybe 3 different people on YouTube who I heard recommending a lot of this stuff that is collected in these IDW collections. Early on, most of it was written by Simon Furman, and he's done a lot of Transformers stuff. He actually wrote The War Within Volumes 1 and 2, but those were not from the same continuity that's what's collected in the IDW collection. The War Within was from a company called Dreamwave, but then those stories were later collected by IDW, I think. But it's a different continuity. But Furman, he also did some of the stuff from Marvel in the 80s, I think, and then he did what I guess we'll call the IDW continuity that started in, I think, 2005. And so you had all these mini-series like Infiltration, Escalation, Devastation, I think was one of them. And a lot of people, I remember there was this YouTube channel that no longer uploads, a Comic Book Orange, and they recommended some of these early Simon Furman stories from the IDW collection. And then there was a guy, Pete LePage from Comic Book Club. He was really into All Hail Megatron when that series was going on. And I remember hearing all these people saying, like, these comics are really good, you guys need to try them out. And then I fell into the hype. And that makes it sound like worse than what it actually is. As I have said in this video, I am not a Transformers fan. Now, I can recognize that some of these stories are really well written. I like some of the twists and turns that it takes. I like the characterization of some of the characters. Some of them, you could take them out of the comic and I wouldn't even notice, but some of them, like, I really like how Prowl is trying to run operations on Earth, and then Optimus Prime comes in and kind of takes leadership from him. I kind of like that. I like how the human characters are presented here. Some of these characters, I find them to be really interesting, but I think when these YouTube channels, when a Comic Book Orange and Pete LePage were recommending some of these Transformers stories from the IDW collection, or from the continuity from IDW, I think what they were really saying was, this is for you if you grew up watching the Transformers cartoon of the 80s. These YouTubers, they are a little bit older than I am, and so I think they probably remember the Transformers cartoon from the 80s, and probably recognize as adults that cartoon wasn't very good. It was very kiddish, it was very simple, it was there basically just to sell toys, and then you have these comics which are taking those same characters and taking the very broad strokes of the stories from that cartoon and actually doing really good stories with those characters and that broad story from the 80s. And so they are saying, okay, this is taking something that I fondly remember from my childhood, and it's doing a better job of it now. And I think that is what was prompting some of these people that I was hearing recommend these IDW Transformers comics. But the thing is, if you do not have any nostalgia attached to the Transformers cartoon, I do not. I think I remember seeing part of one episode that had Bumblebee, but I don't remember, I don't think I watched more than 2 minutes minutes of that episode, and then years later, when I was already an adult, I watched the first season on DVD, and then I couldn't bring myself to watch anymore, so I do not have any attachment to the Transformers cartoons. So for me, reading a lot of these Transformers comics, like I said, I can acknowledge, okay, this is good, I like this, I like that, but I have no emotional attachment to any of this because I don't have emotional attachment to Transformers. I never have, and I don't think I will. I think it's way too little too late for me. I remember fondly playing with my Transformers toys when I was a kid, mostly the Beast Wars stuff. I remember watching Beast Wars, but if I tried to go back and watch that cartoon now, I don't think I would enjoy it. But looking at some of these books, I remember like, oh, I still had like 600 pages of Transformers stuff sitting on my shelf for several years, and I didn't realize that I still had these volumes that I hadn't read, and I was thinking it was 2017 when I did the 365-day graphic novel review challenge, and I, at no point since then, did I feel any obligation to go back and get the IDW Collection Volume 8 or Volume 9. I didn't have any burning desire to keep going with this series. So I think that if you have a love of Transformers already, and for some reason you haven't read any of these IDW books, I think you should at least give them a try. Speaking for me personally, I think the Simon Furman stuff is really good. Right before All Hail Megatron, Simon Furman basically leaves, and then you get some other people writing it, and I think it does take a little bit of a dip in quality at that point, but by then, if you are really into the Simon Furman stuff, then you're probably going to want to keep going anyway, because you will have formed an attachment to what's going on by that point, probably. And I say that if you are already firmly in the camp of loving the Transformers. But if you have no interest in Transformers, but you've heard people say that these comics are really good, you might enjoy them, but I don't know if you would have the same burning love for it that I saw so many people have that prompted me to check these comics out. So that is my taking a look at all of this Transformers stuff that I have, very abbreviated. I did videos on a lot of this stuff years ago. You can go and check out some of that, but my thoughts really haven't changed, I don't think. So me, as a not Transformers fan, taking a look back at all this Transformers stuff. Hope you guys like this video, and I will see you guys in the future with something else. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.